guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're doing something a little different. I decided that since churches were canceled, I would do a little like sermon kind of thing. And yeah, I'm gonna give it a try. I hope you guys like it. Obviously this video is gonna be a little longer than some of my other videos, but this story that I'm gonna read to you about how God's always working is so phenomenal. I really think that you should stay and just listen to this story because, oh man, it's amazing. So I have my handy dandy Bible here and my notes. So if you see me looking down at any time, it's because I'm reading from one of the two just to make sure that I get all of the important details in that you guys deserve to know. So yeah, without further ado, I guess let's get into the sermon. Okay, so the book we're going to be reading is Esther, and if you saw my last video, you know that I've been studying Esther, and it is my favorite book in the Bible. Oh, the story, it's just beautiful to see how God's working in it all. So keep it on my heart to do a little sermon about this now. So that's what I'm going to do. So a little background information. There are four main characters. There's King Xerxes, who is pretty much just the king of the land. He's extremely powerful. He has over 127 provinces, which from my knowledge is kind of like states, I guess. So extremely powerful man. And then there's Esther, who she's a Jew, and she was also an orphan raised by her cousin Mordecai, who is the next main character. And yeah, he's kind of like her parent, but not her actual biological parent. Okay, and then we have the fourth guy, Haman. The Bible says he was given a set of honor higher than that of all nobles, so all the royal officials at the king's gate knelt down to him, and he adored that power. So I kind of think of him as like the guy from Aladdin, the evil guy from Aladdin, how he just wanted all that power, and he was advising the king to do stuff in his own advantage, if that makes any sense. So that's kind of how I think of Haman. Okay, so King Xerxes, he was having a banquet that celebrated his power, fame, wealth, like having all of the property and territory that he was in control of. And one day, in high spirits, which is kind of like drunk, so he drunkenly called for the queen at the time to come wearing nothing but a crown, and she was like, "Whoa, Nelly, I'm not doing that. You're drunk, I'm not coming." And he was like, "If you're gonna disrespect me in front of all of these people, then you're done." Banished her out of the land. And when everything was over, all the festivities, he was like, "Well, I guess I probably shouldn't have done that, because now I need a queen." And so he sent his royal people out to go find the most beautiful virgins and bring them in for kind of like a beauty competition to see who would be the next queen. So when Esther came out, he fell head over heels for her, and she was named queen right on the spot. And so when she was named queen, Mordecai came and talked to her, and he was like, "Look, don't tell them your nationality, don't tell them your family history, they don't need to know that." So as Mordecai would stand at the gates though every morning, when Haman would go through, they would not bow down. And like I said previously, everyone bowed down to Haman because he was also so powerful. And Mordecai was like, "Look, I'm not bowing down to you, dude. Like, I'm a Jew, I believe in God, I'm not bowing down to any mortal." And this infuriated Haman, and he was like, "You have to." And so once he didn't, day after day, Haman was like, "What are we going to do? It's not enough just to kill Mordecai because all of their people don't bow down to me." So he was like, "Got an idea. Let's kill all of the Jews." Okay, so this is what it says in Esther 3, verse 8 through 15. Then Haman said to King Xerxes, "There is a certain people dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom who keep themselves separate. Their customs are different from those of all other people, and they do not obey the king's laws. It is not in the king's best interest to tolerate them. If it pleases the king, let a decree be issued to destroy them, and I will give 10,000 talents of silver to the king's administrators for the royal treasury." So the king took his signet ring from his finger and gave it to Haman. "Keep the money," the king said to Haman, "and do with the people as you please." Then on the 13th day of the first month, the royal secretaries were summoned. They wrote out in the script of each province and in the language of each people all Haman's orders to the king's straps, the governors of the various provinces, and the nobles of the various people. These were written in the name of King Xerxes himself and sealed with his own ring. Dispatches were sent by couriers to all the king's provinces with the order to destroy, kill, and annihilate all Jews, young and old, women and children, on a single day, the 13th day of the 12th month of Adar, and to plunder their goods. A copy of the text of the edict was to be issued as law in every province and made known to the people of every nationality so that they would be ready for the day. The couriers went out, spurred on the king's command, and the edict was issued. The king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Sus was bewildered. When Mordecai heard this, he was, as the Bible said, bewildered. He went to Esther and he was like, "Look, you need to do something about this. You're in the palace." Okay, so this is what Esther responded with. "All the king's officials and the people of royal provinces know that for any man or woman who approaches the king in the inner court without being summoned, the king has but one law, that they be put to death unless the king extends the gold scepter to them and spares their lives. But 30 days have passed since I was called to the king." And then when Mordecai heard this, he responded with, "Do you think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of the Jews will escape? For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish. And who knows but that you have come to the royal position for such a time as this?" So he was like, look, who knows, maybe God put you in the palace for this reason. Like, this is your purpose. So after that, Esther responds with, "Go gather all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my attendants will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish." That is something that I'll touch on later, but those words, they're incredible. If I perish, I perish. So I'm going to be reading Esther 5, 6, and 7. So, on the third day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the palace in front of the king's hall. The king was sitting on the royal throne in the hall, facing the entrance. When he saw Queen Esther standing in the court, he was pleased with her and held out her the gold scepter that was in his hand. So Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. Then the king asked, "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be given to you." "If it pleases the king," Esther replied, "let the king, together with Haman, come today to a banquet I have prepared for him." "Bring Haman at once," said the king, "so that we may do what Esther asks." So the king and Haman went to the banquet Esther had prepared. As they were drinking wine, the king asked Esther again, "Now what is your petition? It will be given to you. And what is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be granted." Esther replied, "My petition and my request is this. If the king regards me with favor, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and fulfill my request, let the king and Haman come tomorrow to the banquet I will prepare. Then I will answer the king's question." Haman went out that day happy and high spirits, but when he saw Mordecai at the king's gate and observed that he neither rose nor showed fear in his presence. He was filled with rage against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman restrained himself and went home. Calling together his friends and Zeresh, his wife, Haman boasted to them about his vast wealth, his many sons, and all the ways the king had honored him, and how he had elevated him above all other nobles and officials. And that's not all, Haman added. I'm the only person Queen Esther invited to accompany the king to the banquet she gave, and she has invited me along with the king tomorrow. But all this gives me no satisfaction as long as I see that Jew, Mordecai, sitting at the king's gate. His wife and all his friends said to him, have a pole set up reaching a height of 50 cubits, and ask the king in the morning to have Mordecai impaled on it. Then go with the king to the banquet and enjoy yourself. This suggestion delighted Haman, and he had set up the pole. Chapter 6. This night the king could not sleep, so he ordered the book of Chronicles, the record of his reign, to be brought in and read from it. It was found recorded there that Mordecai had exposed Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's officers who guarded the doorway, who had conspired to assassinate King Xerxes. What honor and recognition has Mordecai received for this? The king asked. Nothing has been done for him, his attendants answered. The king said, who is in the court? Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the palace to speak to the king about impaling Mordecai on the pole he had set up for him. His attendants answered, Haman is standing in the court. Bring him in, the king ordered. When Haman entered, the king asked, what should be done for a man the king delights to honor? Now Haman thought to himself, who is there the king would rather honor than me? So he answered the king, for the man the king delights to honor, have them bring a royal robe the king has worn and a horse that the king has ridden, one with a royal crest placed on its head. Then let the robe and the horse be entrusted to one of the king's most noble princes. Let them robe the man the king delights to honor, and lead them on a horse in the city, proclaiming before him, this is what is done for a man who the king delights to honor. Go at once, the king commanded, get the robe and the horse, and do just as you have suggested for Mordecai, the Jew, who sits in the king's gate. Do not neglect anything you have recommended. So Haman got the robe and the horse. He robed Mordecai and led him on horseback through the city, proclaiming before him, this is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. Afterwards, Mordecai returned to the king's gate, but Haman rushed home, with his head covered in grief, and told his wife and all his friends everything that had happened. His advisers and his wife said to him, since Mordecai, before whom your downfall has started, is of Jew origin, you cannot stand against him. You will surely come in ruin. While they were still talking with him, the king's eunuchs arrived and hurried Haman away to the banquet Esther had prepared. Oh my gosh, this story is amazing. Chapter 7. So the king and Haman went to Queen Esther's banquet. And as they were drinking wine on the second day, the king again asked, Queen Esther, what is your petition? It will be given to you. What is your request? Even up to half a kingdom it will be granted. Then Esther answered, if I have found favor with you, your majesty, and it pleases you, grant me my life, this is my petition, and spare my people, this is my request. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. If we merely been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept quiet, because no such distress would justify disturbing the king. King Xerxes asked Queen Esther, who is he? Where is he, the man who dared to do such a thing? Queen Esther said, an adversary and enemy, this vile Haman. Then Haman was terrified before the king and queen, and the king got up in rage, left his wine, and went out into the palace garden. But Haman, realizing that the king has already decided his fate, stayed behind to beg Queen Esther for his life. Just as the king returned from the palace garden to the banquet hall, Haman was falling on a couch where Esther was reclining. The king exclaimed, will he even molest the queen while she is in my house? As soon as the word left the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Then Harbona, one of the eunuchs attending the king, said, a pole reaching a height of 50 cubits stands by Haman's house. He said, it is set up for Mordecai, who spoke up to help the king. The king said, impale him on it. So they impaled Haman on the pole that was set up for Mordecai. Then the king's fury subsided. Oh my gosh. So this whole thing, oh, it is insane. Okay. So pretty much a little wrap up of that all. Haman wanted to kill Mordecai. That same night, the king realized that Mordecai saved his life. They didn't do anything for him. So when Haman came in, he asked him, like, dude, what should we do to praise this guy? Not knowing who it was, Haman thought it was himself. He ended up having to go around the city proclaiming that Mordecai was this awesome person that the king delights in. Oh my gosh. And then he ended up being impaled on the pole that he was going to impale Mordecai. Like, this story is insane. Extremely, extremely insane. Okay, so after this, Mordecai was then given Haman's estate, and the king gave Mordecai his signet ring to write another decree in the king's name on behalf of the Jews, because back then it was a law that no document written in the king's name and sealed with the king's ring can be revoked. Okay, so this says what Mordecai wrote in the edict. This is chapter 8, verse 11. The king's edict granted the Jews in every city the right to assemble and protect themselves, to destroy, kill, and annihilate the armed men of any nationality or province who might attack them, their women, or their children, and to plunder their property of their enemies. So pretty much saying, look, they have the right to kill you, but you have the right to get together and kill them back. So it's pretty much like a purge. So then many people of other nationalities became Jews because of the fear that the Jews had seized them. Okay, so all these people of different nationalities that aren't even Jewish are like, whoa, the Jews can come together. I don't want to be killed by them, so let's say that we're Jews too. So then, when the day came, this is what it says in chapter 9, verse 2. On this day, the enemies of the Jews had hoped to overpower them, but now the tables were turned, and the Jews got the upper hand over those who hated them. The Jews assembled in their cities in all the provinces of King Xerxes to attack those determined to destroy them. No one could stand against them, because the people of all the other nationalities were afraid of them, and all the nobles of the provinces, the governors, and the king's administrators helped the Jews, because fear of Mordecai had seized them. Mordecai was prominent in the palace. His reputation spread throughout the provinces, and he became more and more powerful. Can we just... Okay. So, they wanted... Oh my gosh, God is so amazing. Okay, so there are 4 things that I kind of want to touch on about this story. And little things, there's so many teachings in this little story. This, like, 5 pages. There's so many incredible things that you can pull from this. But I have 4 main things that I want to touch on. And the first one is the fact that Esther said, "And if I perish, I will perish." And that shows incredible strength and trust in the Lord, because we are here not for ourselves. I know it is humanly natural to be selfish and want fame and money and all of these things, but that is not what's going to make us happy, and that's ultimately not why we're here. And as soon as we start living for God, we get what we want. But the thing is about that what we want changes to be for God. So when Esther said, "If I perish, I perish," she was showing incredible strength. And there are Christians that are doing it now. They're across the world. Like, we are so lucky here in the United States. We have freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom to assemble. But over in other countries, like in China, they mention God and they could die. Like, they literally risk their lives every day to live for God. When here, I know it kind of feels like we risk our social lives. We have fear of being rejected from people, not being accepted, and that's like our perishing. Oh my gosh, that statement that she said shows incredible strength, and we should try to live up to that every single day. And yeah, it's gonna be hard at times. We're naturally selfish people, and we don't want to put ourselves in danger and in pain and in heartache. However, that's what we're here for. We're flesh. Matthew 26:41 says, the spirit is willing and the flesh is weak. Like, we are weak. But the thing to remember is that we're not home yet. Like, this is not our home. When we go home, all of our pain, all of our suffering, all of our heartache will be gone. But right now is our time to work, is our time to grind for the Lord, because we're not home and we're not resting yet. So just remember that anytime you're hurt, you're conflicting, just remember that we're not home. Once we get home, everything is going to be okay, and this is just going to be a little blimp of time that we're not even going to remember in the grand scheme of things. So yes, remember, if I perish, I perish. Okay, another thing is, I want to point out God's timing and his working in this story. There is no coincidence when it comes to God and the Bible and stuff that happens when you're like, oh, that's just a coincidence. No, that is God. Like, there is the odds of King Xerxes not being able to sleep the same night Mordecai was going to be killed, end up picking a huge book. He was the king. He had thousands, any book he could possibly want read to him, and he chose the one that was about his life. And his servant chose the story about Mordecai saving his life. And then the king being like, what did we do for him? And nothing being done. The same night that Haman was going to kill Mordecai, all of this is happening. That is not a coincidence. That is 100% God, and that is what is so cool. You cannot, like, at the time, King Xerxes was like, look, I can't sleep, dude, read me a story. The servant reading to him was probably like, okay, whatever. Read him some random story, but no, all of this was in God's plan. Like, God knew this was going to happen to save Mordecai's life, and no one there saw it happening. Just like right now, God is working, and we cannot see it happening, but he is working, and he has placed everything perfectly for what he needs to be done, and we just need to trust that. That is one of the best things that I have found in this story, is that how God's placement and his setting and his time frame, it all comes together perfectly because he is God. And especially at a time like that, we really need this. But third thing I wanted to mention, there is only 2 books in the Bible that do not mention God at all. Esther, and then the Song of Solomon. Yet, it is incredible. They do not mention God, Jesus, the Trinity, the Holy Spirit. They don't mention it at all. Yet you can see how God is working through this story in so many different aspects, in so many different people's lives. It is phenomenal. And just like now, when we don't see how God's working, like, how can he bring this time where, like, no one knows what's happening? There's this sickness, there's this people just dying everywhere. Like, how is God working through this? Like, how is he using this in his plan? However, he is working even when you can't see him. Just like you can't see him in the Bible. Like, in this story of Esther, you can't see him. His name is not mentioned at all. Yet now that we're removed from the situation, you can see how he was using this for good and how he was using this in his plan. And just like we're in the center of it all. It's like when people are angry and then they go to other people and they're like, look, take a step back, take a breather, and then reassess. Like, that's how it is. Right now it's scary. We can't see how God is working because we are in the process. But as time goes by, when this is all over and we take a step back and we look at it, you're like, I see what he was doing. Like, I see how he was working. And that's just what I really want you to remember, is that right now we're in the midst of it. Just like these Jews, they thought that they were going to die, and they were like, how is God using this? How is this in God's plan? Yet now, afterwards, when they're removed from the situation, they can see how he's working. So the song, oh my gosh, there is such a great song called Waymaker. You should really go look it up. Anyway, the lyrics are like, even when I can't see it, he's working. He never stops working. Like, and those words, it just, it's a great song. I really suggest you listening to it. But those words are crucial at a time like this. Even when we can't see him, he is working and he does have a plan, so we need to trust. Okay, so the fourth and final thing I want to mention is that even though the Jews were going to get attacked and they were saved from being attacked, they still had to battle. This is a huge thing that I think a lot of people, young adults, I guess, more so, think about Christianity. They think like, look, I've accepted God, why is it still so hard? Or they think, if I do accept him, all of this pain and suffering will go away, and that's not what happens at all. No one said Christianity was going to be easy. So we as Christians still have to choose to get up every day and battle through temptation and lust and pain and suffering. Like, we still have to battle all of those things. The difference now is just that we have something to fight for when we wake up. Like, we are fighting for God. The battle that we choose to fight every single day, we could never fight on our own. When we accept God, we now accept his help and his strength to get us through those temptations and through that heartache and through the suffering, because we are weak without God. We are nothing without him. No one ever woke up one day, accepted Jesus, and then was like, all my anxieties are gone. All of my temptation is gone. All of my pain and heartache is gone. Like, no. We still wake up every single day and fight the good fight. Like, we choose to battle every single day, and that's when the good comes out of it. If the Jews decided they weren't going to battle, they would all be gone. Like, we have to choose every single day to battle and fight for God and what we know is right, because the devil, he does not go away, and every morning there's that new temptation and that new pain and that new heartache. So we have to wake up every morning and choose to fight and battle, and that's exactly what they did. They still battled. So that's an important thing to remember. Okay, I hope that you guys liked this video. It was a little different. If you stay with me until the end, thank you so much. I hope you love the story as much as I do, and I hope that you can see how God is working and how he's always there, and I hope that you can see how it relates to what we're going through today with this coronavirus, and how even though we can't see him, he is still working. So I realized last time that my comments were turned off. However, if they are turned back on, I would love for you to comment down below how I can pray for you. If you're not comfortable with doing that, if you just want to put your name, God knows what you need. I can just pray for you as a person, and God knows what you need at this time. So yeah, I hope that you guys have a blessed day, whether it's Sunday that you're watching this or any day of the week. I hope that it is phenomenal. So, bye. Love you.